Okay. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to start the webinar on smart and sustainable mobility measures in tourist destinations. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us to this webinar. We had a very successful invitation, so around 200 registered organizations had expressed their interest to participate. So we see it is an interesting topic for a lot of you, and we are great to see that. So I am Sandra de Puig. I am working for Nextour, the network of European regions for sustainable and competitive tourism. Have been cooperating with the CIVITAS Destination project, and we are members of the consortium of the sustainable tourism community, and therefore I am delighted to be moderating the webinar of today. So I will be moderating also with the support of Josep Rodriguez, who will be moderating the questions that would be raised through the chat. So now just let me give you some practicalities before we start the webinar. So if we can go back to the slide, Lucian, please. The next slide. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So for your information, this webinar is going to be recorded, so we will be able to send it later on to for the interested people that has not been able to join. For those that not have been using GoToWebinar before, you see that you have this red arrow over here that will enable you to control the panel. You can click on it to hide this control panel or click on it also to open it. We have a dedicated toolbox which is named questions, and it's going to be through this toolbox that we are going to manage the questions that you would like to raise to the panelists. So as you may know, in the agenda we have foreseen two specific moments to raise questions to the panelists. One is going to be following the presentations of the CIVITAS Destination project, and the other one is going to be following the presentations of the Sustainable Tourism Community and the Urban Transport Community. When you would like to share any kind of questions, please don't hesitate to do so via this online toolbox. We have Josep Rodriguez, who will be managing and gathering these questions and will be sharing them orally to the panelists. In case you have any other comments or any information that you would like to share, also please use this tool so we can take them into consideration after the webinar. And in case you face any IT problem, also please use this question toolbox so we can support you on that. There is a raise hand. I hope that you can see it all. So I hope everybody can listen properly. If you can listen and see properly the slide we are sharing, kindly click on the raise hand so we can see that everything is going smoothly. And therefore, let me, before starting, also remind to the panelists several things. First of all, the panelists, you will need to, while you are not speaking, you will have your camera off and you will have your micro off. When it will be your turn, please remind turning on your camera and turning on also your micro. And also have, before sharing the screen, your presentation ready, and then accept to be sharing the screen, okay? So with no further delay, we will be starting then the webinar, and we will have a first session just with some introductory words for the three projects that are being involved in the organization of this webinar. So we will have Mr. Josep Rodriguez from Barcelona Provincial Council, leader of the MED Sustainable Tourism Community. We will have also Mr. Panos Koroyanaki from the Conference of Peripheral Maritime Regions, Director of Communications of CIVITAS Destination Project, and we will also have Mr. Oriol Barba from MEDCYCLETOUR, leader of the Urban Transports Community. So thank you very much. Welcome you, the three of you, and now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Josep Rodriguez, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sandra, for the introduction. and welcome to all participants. As Sandra said, we are very happy because this webinar has people have shown a great interest, and we have more than 200 participants. Well, for those who are not familiar, I would like just very briefly to explain who we are and what we do. We are a community of funded projects by the Interreg MED program, which is a program that supports the interregional cooperation in the North Shore of the Mediterranean, and it deals with several thematic axes. In our case, the Sustainable Tourist Community brings together 24 projects dealing with the sustainable tourism in this important area for the tourist sector. As I said, there are 24 projects involving more than 200 entities, and in total 500 people working for getting a more sustainable tourism in the Mediterranean. Very briefly, I wanted to highlight two main ideas for this webinar. First one is to welcome this cooperation between these three big European projects with similar issues. So I think it's very important that we establish this sort of cooperation in order to exchange the results of our projects among us. The role of all of these projects is to transfer the results of produce in our communities, in our projects, and to take benefit by all other destinations in the Mediterranean and also in other European destinations. And the second idea I wanted to highlight today is the topic of mobility and tourism. It is a key issue for the sustainability of the destinations. When we talk about mobility, there are a lot of things, there are a lot of aspects to be covered when we talk about tourism. Not only the mobility from the origin of the tourist to the destinations, but the mobility within the destination, from the coast to the hinterlands, how the tourists are using the public transportation, how to promote low carbon transportation means, and so on. So there are several topics that connect tourism and mobility, and today we will see some examples of projects that have developed some interesting tools and instruments that could be useful for the destinations. So that's all from my side. I hope you find it interesting, and of course you could use it in your own destinations. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you very much, Josep. And please, Panos, now is your turn.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to share my screen as well to just may I? My name is Panos Korogianakis. I am the Director of Communications in the CIVITAS Destinations project. Thank you. And I am here today to discuss the achievements of the CIVITAS Destinations project. Let me just show you in one slide, if I can find it. Here it is. In a few words, some of the main features of the project. The project involves 6 European islands. It has 28 partners from 9 European countries, EU member states, plus links to China. It is a project running for a little more than 4 years until the 30th of November 2020. And it has a significant budget financed from the Horizon 2020 budget of almost 20 million, of which 17.8 million are EU contributions. You can see on that map the location of the 6 islands that participate in the project. It is Funchal in Madeira, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, Valletta in Malta, Elba in Italy, Rethymno in Crete, and Limassol in Cyprus. The CPMR has the responsibility for communication, replication, and information dissemination. But what I want to say in finishing is that the CPMR has a long experience in Interreg MED projects, and I will just name a few. I will name the projects that many of you probably have heard, is the Co-Evolve and the MitoMed Plus projects that just finished a few months ago. And there are 3 more tourism-linked projects financed by Interreg MED. One is the Herit Data project, assessing the impact of tourism on a cultural heritage. And the WinterMed project that examines the fluctuations of tourism between summer and winter in our Mediterranean islands. And the DestiMed project that is looking at the impact of tourism on protected areas in the Mediterranean basin. With this very brief outline, I pass the microphone to my colleague from Interreg MED to give you to tell you a couple of words about their work. Thank you very much. Sandra, you can pass the microphone to the next speaker, please.
Yes, please. Mr. Uriol Barba from MedCities, Urban Transfers Community, led by Arno.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your invitation. My name is Uriol Barba. I'm the director of MedCities, the network of metropolitan authorities and municipalities from all over the Mediterranean. And we are leading the urban transport community within the Interreg MED project. We're happy to be here because, as Josep Rodriguez said, the interlinks between the transport and tourism are very high. And I think that the cooperation between the institutions participating in those 2 communities is essential to achieve transferability of the results. Our project, our community is gathering around 100 institutions from 12 different countries that participated in the modular projects of the Interreg MED community. I said participated because most of those projects are over. We're implementing during the first phase of this program, 2016-2019, and now we are focusing our efforts in transferability of the results. Our obsession, I would say, is that it's not enough to having our solutions available for others. We need to make active actions in order to get those solutions implemented by other institutions, by other local authorities, and by other organizations. It's not only about putting them available in one website or explaining them in one webinar or seminar, but accompanying somehow those institutions in order to acquire the solutions that others have implemented. To that end, we have defined a 3-level scheme of transferability that started 6 months ago and will run for 2 more years. And those 3 levels are mentoring. We will be accompanying 8 territories in the assumption and implementation of successful initiative implemented within the modular projects of the Interreg MED community, with the support of those pioneers in order to get the solutions transferred. We will then work at the meso level, and what we call the meso level is the compendium of webinars and activities in different fora, like the European Mobility Week, like the European Week of Cities and Regions, and many other fora, in order to get this transferability done at a wider level. And finally, we will focus our efforts into the policy leverage, into the assumption by policymakers at local, regional, and national and European level, in order to incorporate somehow policy changes in order to facilitate the implementation of those solutions that has been successful. I was given 3 minutes to make this introduction, which are now over. I just want to outline once again that in order to make transferability successful, it is not enough of making the solutions available, but a mentoring and accompanying solid scheme is needed in order to help the territories to implement the successful solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Uriol, also for this message. Thank you, the three of you, for giving us a little overview of the 3 projects. And now we will go then to give a deeper focus into the CIVITAS Destinations project. So we will start with Mrs. Maria Stilianou. She is the manager from Limassol Tourism Board, and she will be explaining the 10 practical guidelines on tourism and mobility that have been developed in the framework of CIVITAS Destinations. So please, Maria, thank you. And you are able perfectly, yes, to share your screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you all for participating in this seminar. I hope you find it useful. My approach will be very practical and less academic. I think that we can all relate to examples of different destinations and make easier, let's say, conclusions on how to proceed and implement such guidelines. To start with, generally the CIVITAS projects are for cities dedicated to cleaner and better transport in Europe and beyond. What made CIVITAS Destinations different is the fact that it brought together tourism and mobility. So we found that by promoting sustainable mobility in our destinations, we are actually benefiting the destination itself for the visitor. So we came up with 10 practical guidelines, which we wish to share with you today. We are targeting transport and tourism authorities and other stakeholders in order to improve tourism governance, customer journey, and of course, reduce emissions by promoting sustainable mobility. And to start with the first one, establish cooperations, bringing the tourism and mobility sectors together. In our case, we start from bringing the official tourist bodies together with the Ministry of Transport. This is at a higher level, but at an everyday level, bringing together the hoteliers with the bike sharing companies. The bike sharing companies with the intercity buses, making connections where it makes sense, where you can develop win-win cooperation without affecting anybody's business negatively, of course. So we bring them together, we help them establish these cooperations, we support their plans, aiming always to improve the visitor's experience. For example, if I end up in a hotel looking for a bicycle, as a visitor, I would appreciate having the option to get a bike from the bike sharing company right outside the hotel, rather than find a company that rents a bicycle, make a phone call, they bring it to the hotel. So it makes it easier for the visitor and it makes it better business for the stakeholders. Moving on to enriching the tourism product, promote mobility solutions as a benefit for an improved tourist product. First of all, in a city, in a tourist area with less cars, we automatically have less noise, less air pollution, improved safety, and better environment. This is the basis of what we are trying to do. Furthermore, though, by avoiding, for example, to come to Limassol, which is a tourist destination on the island of Cyprus, to come from the airport to the tourist area, if you get a taxi, you need to pay something around €70. and you need another 70 euro to return to the airport when the holiday is over. That's 140 euro. If you get the airport shuttle that was set up after our tourist board encouraged businesses to get involved, you can do this with 10 euro to go from the airport to the tourist area and 10 euro to return. So you have a saving of 120 euro, which is not an amount to ignore, and that amount you can spend on a lovely night out or to get a spa treatment and make your holiday experience, richer. This is what we mean. Additionally, we do have an amount of people that are looking for climate-friendly solutions. They are looking for greener destinations. So by promoting sustainable mobility solutions, you are qualifying, let's say, for the kind of visitor that looks for destinations that care, that pay attention to becoming greener. Number 3, generate experiences, designing tourist experiences, combining sustainable mobility modes. For example, design routes in the countryside to experience, let's say, the traditions of an area by combining the rural bus and the bicycle. In our case, we have installed bike racks on rural buses, so you can actually put the bicycle on the rural bus, go to the countryside, take the bicycle, and then follow one of the routes we have designed. Now, it's easier to do with walking tours, for example, in the old town, for people that have an interest in architecture, for example, or for people that want to visit the local workshops, art workshops. So we create new experiences by introducing these sustainable mobility modes, walking, cycling, the bus, and so on, into a route, into a tourist experience. To support this, we also introduce mobile applications, so someone can do so independently. They can follow the application on their phone, and they can find out about each place, and they know where to go next, so it makes independent traveling easier. Create an information hub. Everybody in tourism knows that information is essential. So we provide electronic and print information in a very simple and user-friendly way, trying to minimize print material, maximize the digital tools that can be used. We have introduced a number of applications, a journey planner, integrated ticketing. So information is a big tool to use, and by using it to promote sustainable mobility solutions, we give the visitor what they need to plan accordingly. Number 5, upgrade the rural public transport services. You can do so by installing Wi-Fi on rural buses, bike racks, as I said before, even by creating experiences combined to the rural routes. So the sky is the limit. We all have a lot of beauties to promote in our destinations. You need to find the right product to connect with using a rural bus in order to encourage people to do so. So instead of renting a car, take the rural bus and make sure that this is going to be a positive experience, effortless, and definitely rich enough to qualify for a full day that was spent in a very good way. Number 6, involve tourism stakeholders. Okay, no tourism body and no association can work on its own. You need to involve the stakeholders. The more you involve them, the more you get them to believe in this, the easier it becomes. So we try to organize workshops, but we also combine these workshops with experiences. So we get them out of their offices, out of the front desk of the hotels. We do provide some information in class, and then we take them out for a 12-kilometer hike, for example. We take them for a cycling experience, and we found that this is a very interesting way to get them involved. They communicate the fun they have online on social media, and they kind of become believers in what we are doing. Some people haven't been on a bicycle for years, and they are forced, because of the group pressure, to get back on a bike and join, you know, which is quite interesting. They find it a bit strange at the beginning, and afterwards, though, they feel very good about themselves, and they do enjoy, and they can share this excitement with their customers, their guests later on. This is a way we find, let's say, to create ambassadors about what we are doing. Number 7, combined transport modes, creating synergies between the different sustainable mobility modes. Cross-selling is very valuable. For example, if you sell bike sharing, you can offer your customers a discount on intercity buses to go and visit a nearby city, which they might not be able to do so on a bicycle due to the distance. Or the bus company can provide discounts for renting bicycles or booking bike excursions. So we create cross-selling opportunities. We even come up with these opportunities, and we get the stakeholders together to, let's say, share our ideas and get them to cooperate for their own, of course, financial benefit. Number 8, gather, share, and use data. We all know the value of having the right information in hand to make decisions. Essential for planning, of course, knowing the profile of your tourist. We make it a point to collect information, and we use this information to develop tailor-made solutions. In our destination, we have experienced a very interesting growth of cycling in the last 5 years. It's very good for us. That is, at the same time, we are running the project, because we feel that our efforts are paying off. But we take advantage of this interest in cycling, and we create more cycling routes. We improve the cycling infrastructure. So we use this information in a way that is going to be beneficial for the tourism industry in the long run. Develop sustainable mobility, inclusive strategic planning. Include the upgrading of sustainable mobility modes and infrastructures. This is an ongoing process. We need the local authorities to be on our side. We need the Ministry of Transport to support financially. What we believe very strongly in is that we should not wait for the demand to increase in order to increase the infrastructures. We do need to continuously invest in safe walking and cycling infrastructures, in establishing networks for charging electric cars, for example, and the demand is going to grow organically, let's say, on time. But we do need to improve our destinations and make them suitable for this demand to grow. And the last one, recognizing good practices. It is very important in each destination to recognize the companies, the hotels, the professionals that are sharing the same philosophy and are making efforts. So by recognizing best practices and by offering these businesses, let's say, publicity, you are encouraging them to work harder, and you are also encouraging others to imitate. In the case of Limassol, we have established a reward scheme called Green Label Award, and every year we award the hotels that follow our criteria to become greener, and in return we offer them publicity and we offer them a number of other benefits that at the end of the day are good for their image and for their sales. I hope I haven't been too academic. I'm trying to keep it as practical as possible. Thank you all for your attention, and I hope that you found the content of this presentation useful. Thank you.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much, Maria, not only for explaining the practical guidelines, but also for letting us know how you are transferring them in Limassol, and also the feedback you are receiving from the different stakeholders, which I think is extremely relevant. So thank you very much. We continue then with CIVITAS Destination, or we continue with the islands of the CIVITAS Destination project. And now Panos Kornayaki will explain us a little bit some of the smart and sustainable mobility measures that are in tourism that have been developed in the project. Thank you very much, Panos.
Thank you, Sandra. Here's my screen. I want to start by showing to all of you the significance of tourism and the impact of tourism on the transportation sector. First of all, probably something that you all know, we have, before the COVID-19 epidemic, an average number of visitors coming to Europe, tourists coming to Europe, about 600 million, which is about 1/3 of the global tourism business. Every year in Europe, we have about 55% of those visitors arriving by plane and about 39% by road. So it is important that we keep these two main transportation modes in mind when we do our analysis and our work. Why focus on tourist mobility? Well, a city or a region with good mobility for tourists and a city or a region with good mobility for its residents provides mutually beneficial opportunities with better and clear real-time transport information, using easy-to-pay integrated public transport ticketing systems, providing access to shared mobility, such as e-mobility services and other shared mobility services, such as bicycles or shared cars, is benefiting from less traffic congestion, noise, and air pollution. It has less negative effects on the local society. And last, but the most important perhaps in my mind, is it entices behavioral change of tourists and local citizens towards more sustainable mobility modes of transport. The CIVITAS Destinations project has developed 79 innovative mobility measures in the 6 islands that I mentioned in my introductory remarks, the islands of Madeira, Gran Canaria, Malta, Elba, Crete, and Cyprus. Our activities have a very strong replication potential, and therefore we are developing these innovative mobility measures not just for the purposes of the project, but for the purposes of expanding and replicating as many of them as we can. In the next slide, I show you a number of best practice examples that have a direct impact on tourism, such as the ELBA Mobility Sharing Agency, the Mobility and Accommodation Package, the electric bus services in Madeira and Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, mobility information services and integrated payment solutions that we have developed, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, shared mobility services such as the CIVITAS program, the very successful CIVITAS program in Las Palmas, mobility applications in Malta and Cyprus, launching e-mobility infrastructure in all of our islands, Crete, Elba, Cyprus, Madeira, Las Palmas, and Malta as well, and the Green Mobility Hotel Awards that you have just heard from my colleague Maria Stilianou make a reference earlier. I will give you, due to the limited time we have this morning, I will say that all these 79 measures are grouped in 5 thematic areas covering sustainable urban mobility and logistics planning that includes the impact of tourism in some of our destinations for the first time. The second area is safe, attractive public spaces for tourists and citizens alike, promoting zero emissions transport. The third one is shared mobility and e-infrastructure. As you know, we cannot have electromobility without the appropriate infrastructure. There is a major effort that is being done across Europe and in our 6 islands as well to develop that infrastructure. And mobility demand management, very important theme in our work. And of course, last but not least, attractive, clean, accessible, and efficient public transport. So within these 5 thematic areas, we have developed our work. I will stop and make reference to one of the most innovative aspects of our work, the ELBA'SHARED Mobility Agency. This is a platform that has been created on the island of Elba that has as main purpose to plan, manage, and coordinate ride-sharing services, user information, and service networking across the island. Now, this is important to keep in mind that when we say ride-sharing services, we include, as you can see in the diagram on the right, taxis, public transport, private cars, bicycles, and other shared mobility services. The platform, through an app, allows the tourist that arrives on the island to be able to indicate his or her present location and his or her final destination on the island. And the platform informs him or her immediately of all available ride-sharing options. It could be a taxi, it could be a bicycle, it could be a private car as well. Private citizens have also participated in the program and allow their services to be offered to the tourists through basically what we call planned hitchhiking operations. The IT platform and the connectivity, it aims to the reduction of the contrast between the reduction of the congestion on the island and contrast between individual and collective transport. In terms of our mobility demand management activities, in ELBA, the two communities of Rio and Portoferraio have participated in an innovative program where they have engaged 10 hotels to offer 40 e-bikes and make them available to their clients. And the agreement between the hotel association and the public transport operator has been very successful in promoting public transport and discounts for tourists. In Limassol, as you heard, but as well as in Malta, there are programs for Green Label and Green Hotel Awards. There is awards, there's an offer to hotels that promote sustainable mobility. And in Limassol, as well as in Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, as you will see in a minute, there are tourist mobility cards for hotel guests. In terms of our improved, accessible and efficient public transport services, in Madeira, they have tested, Madeira is a volcanic island with very narrow streets. They have tested standard size and mini e-buses. I have provided a link for a video that provides more details about these tests, including emissions details, autonomy details, battery life details, etc. And through these tests, the public transport operator of Madeira, Horarios de Funsal, unlocked additional ERDF funding for 5 minibuses and 1 bus that has a special equipment for persons with reduced mobility. They have also included some roof solar panels on 2 buses to reduce the energy consumption of these buses. In Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, there are panels with real-time information on bus stops. The city of Las Palmas has acquired 3 new hybrid buses and 1 full-size electric bus, and they have developed these 1 or 3 day touristic travel cards that are available to all tourists for 1 or 3 days and allow the tourists to have access to public transport services, but also to other services such as the shared bike system called CIVITAS that I just mentioned in my previous slide. I also want to mention, because there was a relevant question, that in certain of our locations, particularly on the island of Crete, in the city of Rethymno, has also introduced a system of access of disabled persons, disabled tourists to the beaches. It is a system called C-Track that allows a disabled person to cross the beach and enter the water seated on an electrically driven chair all the way into the water. So this is one of our questions that we had from one of the participants. In addition to these very few samples of the work that we're doing, I have a few more minutes to mention to you that in the light of the project, we have developed a platform of followers. The platform is a part of a very strong dissemination mandate that we have in the project. It was established in 2017. It contains a wealth of project information, is available. Half of the platform is open to the public. The other half, that contains also many of our project deliverables, is available through a simple registration process. You provide your name and your email address, and then we send you a password and you have full access to the platform. We have more than 200 followers registered at the moment, and we use this platform also as a driver to more transferability and replication activities. Indeed, during the life of the project, we have made funding available to replicate the project's activities all across Europe. At the moment, we are running replication activities in 8 different European cities or sustainable mobility service providers that are involved in our program, covering European regions from Croatia to Spain to Greece to Portugal and many other locations. Furthermore, a number of transferability workshops and webinars have been planned and have been run, like the one of today, mostly targeting the more than 150 CPMR member regions that are prime candidates to replicate some of our work. I think that I will take the last minute to share with you some of the main lessons we learned. It is not enough to promote sustainable mobility to tourists by disseminating its importance for the environment. What is important is to promote all sustainable modes of transport for tourism as part of the touristic experience. Make it part of the package. Make it part of the stay of the tourist in your destination. And to do this, you have to use a number of tools, including promotions and behavioral change tools. So I think it is important that the tourist has the opportunity to meet the locals, to experience the culture, to change behavior, to enjoy modern sustainable public transport, to use available sustainable transport options such as bikes, e-bikes, e-scooters, shared e-cars, and others. And finally, I believe that another similar lessons that can be drawn from our work is the involvement of citizens and all stakeholders early on in the process, the involvement of politicians also earlier in the process. If we can demonstrate how the activities we run will benefit the residents of the local community, then the politicians will help us understand, will help us to promote and understand the benefits of such activities. The development of and the acceptance of new technologies and information systems is also very important. In the life of our project, technology and innovation have played a major role in order to promote platforms, smart mobile applications, and other tools, including innovative environmental monitoring stations, traffic management tools, and traffic monitoring tools that help us assess the seasonal impact of tourism on mobility and transport. Finally, I think we have to be ready to plan continuously and to take into account and constantly evaluate the impact of tourism on mobility and the environment. With these few concluding remarks, I would like to thank you all for your attention this morning. And on that slide, you will see our destinations website, the URL for our platform, our video channel, and our Facebook page. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Panos, and also Maria, thank you for speaking so perfectly to the time. And thank you, Panos, for explaining these examples on the measures and how actually these measures, they are benefiting not only the residents, but also the tourists, not only the residents, but also the temporary residents, which are at the end the tourists. also for sharing is all these lessons learned, which at the end I think that they are of utmost help when trying to apply these kind of measures in a destination, to learn also what has been working, what has been working less successfully, and to give this kind of tips. So now I would like to give the floor to Giuseppe, who has been collecting, I think, some of the questions that were raised in the question box, and therefore I will invite Panos and Maria to put their micro on and turn your camera on, so you could reply to the questions that Giuseppe will be sharing with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Welcome to this first slot of questions and answers. We have several questions on the question box. First of all is an organizational question. If the participants are going to receive all the materials used today, we have to say yes. All materials will be available in our websites. Also the video recording of the session, and we will send also a summary of the main contents of the session. And concerning the direct questions, there was a question for Maria about if they have thought about accessible transportation and information for people with disabilities and special needs. It is true that Panos already mentioned that's one of the experiences I've taken into account this aspect. There are a couple of questions concerning road safety. Emma McLennan says that road injuries are the biggest killers of tourists globally. And she says that totally agree about active mobility, but we need to think about safety too in all modes of transport. And also there is another question concerning another comment on road safety from Evangelos Belos. He asks if you have included in your analysis the strong relationship between the international tourists and road safety in destination countries. There are also the questions related how are you planning to give continuity to the actions of the project? And there are also a couple of questions related to a topic that I think that there is a question for all the speakers because we cannot forget what is the current scenario with COVID-19. So do you think that these measures will enhance the post-COVID scenario, taking into account that it is a current scenario, but it will probably for several months? Plutarchos Pantelides is asking that if the COVID pandemic will lead the pandemic will lead to a long-lasting change in tourists and residents' attitudes towards mobility, such as, for example, avoiding public transport like buses or share cars in favor of private cars, and bike sharing systems within the cities, either for short distance commuting and leisure. Finally, there are other questions. Do you have any tool to measure the perception evaluation of residents about all these mobility solutions designed initially for tourists? So what would be the opinion of the local residents? And finally, final questions from Alexandros Stratopoulos. What would you suggest as a short midterm plan involving local stakeholders in order to avoid disruption of the business and rather enhance it? So I think it's yeah.
I would like to address a couple of the questions very quickly. I think
that's all. So these are all the questions.
Yeah. Thank you all for asking these very, very important questions. And let me just make one general statement. I'm stating the obvious. Life after COVID-19 is not going to be the same for tourism and for transport. We've all seen the impact, and we're all in our destinations taking measures to mitigate that impact. We cannot avoid the impact. There is definitely going to be a very difficult 2020 summer season for all of our islands and our destinations. However, regarding, of course, there will be an impact on public transport as well, as people, avoid public transport. However, there is hope because what we see, and it is too early to draw any conclusions, is the fact that in some of our islands, shared mobility services such as bicycles are going through the roof, not only in terms of shared mobility, but even the local population is now using the bicycle a lot more than ever before. We've seen this all across Europe, so there is hope. The other thing about safety, I would like to say to you that safety is of importance. We have special programs in many of our islands. For example, developing the mobility culture for schools, running special safety programs for bus drivers, and also having eco-driving programs and lessons in some of our islands. All of these aiming to have our tourists, our visitors, protected to the maximum, and therefore we want to make their stay as enjoyable as possible. But as I said, taking into account the new conditions, we hope that the tourism sector will recover, but it will take some time. That is we're doing our utmost to mitigate the impact, but the impact is unavoidable. Thank you.
Maria, would you like to also reply some of the questions?
I've made a few notes of the question. First of all, thank you all for the interest you're showing and for all your questions. Regarding the issue of accessibility, I'll take it from the beginning. The issue of accessibility is, for us, it's not something we should touch separately. In everything we do, we take accessibility of people with disabilities into consideration. So if we create an app, a mobile application, we always have a section providing information about what is accessible to what level, and so on. So accessibility is always taken into consideration in every action we take. Now, we also established cooperation with the associations, the different associations of people with disabilities, and we always get their advice where we think it's needed. Now, regarding road safety, this is a bigger problem in countries that have cycling in a much more developed stage. For our smaller destinations, especially on islands, it's less of a hassle. We try to promote cycling infrastructure such as cycling paths outside the high traffic areas, which of course are the most beautiful areas by the sea or in the countryside, rather in the busy centers, commercial centers of the cities. So we try to provide the infrastructure that is outside the high traffic areas and is also combined with the scenery. Okay, so for a tourist is not getting from point A to point B like the locals that might want to get to work and back on a bicycle. For the tourist is more to enjoy. So this is how we promote the creation of suitable infrastructure to serve the tourists and minimize the safety issues we might face. Regarding the continuity of the actions, this is a very interesting point. At least as an authority, what we are trying to do is ensure on an ongoing basis that we do get involved into different projects and we take our work a step forward with the next one. Besides that, we always use part of our main budget as an organization to enrich what we are doing through the EU projects. For example, this year, because we haven't done the promotional campaigns we planned early in winter and later on in springtime, for obvious reasons, all this budget is going into developing new cycling routes, as well as cultural routes, which will be mostly a bus product rather than a cycling product. So we try to get funding from wherever we can, but even from our own organization budget, we do continue the efforts and we ensure their continuity. The post-COVID scenario, I think it became very obvious that mobility and tourism are the two sectors that have been affected the most. We can see less interest in buses, higher interest in cycling and walking, as Panos said as well. And especially for our case, the small destinations, the island destinations, walking and cycling is a very good time to promote aggressively. And it's becoming a very good alternative even to a private car. I mean, renting a car has its own worries about whether it's been disinfected properly. It's much easier to get a bicycle and clean up the areas you will touch, and you feel safe enough to move around. So I think that like in every crisis, there are opportunities as well as limitations. Here we have to take the opportunity and push for walking and cycling solutions.
Maria, if I can interrupt you, because we are running a little late in the program at the moment. I think the most important element is that we are constantly assessing. There is a relevant question that I want to answer before we move to the next speakers. We are constantly assessing through a set of key performance indicators the impact of what is happening in every location, both before the COVID-19 epidemic, but also now after the COVID. We have a very strong evaluation program within the Destinations project, and we will not complete the full evaluation of our results until next November, which is the end of our project. So yes, to answer the question, we are constantly assessing and we are constantly evaluating of the different means of transport with quantitative values, yes, as the question is asking. Thank you for this, and this is my last comment.
Sandra, I don't know if we have time for one last point about the opinion of local residents. It's one of the questions that hasn't been answered. I just want to say that the local residents benefit from everything we do, even though we are a tourist body and we are aiming at the visitor. The infrastructure we build and even the tourist products we develop have become very interesting for the local residents as well. We've had a positive reaction, but I need to note here that we are not a mass destination. We are aiming for the tourist that is looking for a full experience, not the kind of tourist that will only come to eat, drink, and sunbathe, for example. So we are not promoting mass tourism. We are promoting our destination as one that will offer rich experiences for families, for couples, for friends. And we are not aiming at very high numbers. We are aiming at the quality of the visitor.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think it was very clear, and you touched all the questions that were raised. Thank you for that. And now, with no further delay, we will give then the floor to the Interreg MED projects on the sustainable tourism and urban transports communities. This session is about transferring the results of the projects on tourism and mobility in the Mediterranean. So we will have 4 panelists that will give us some insights on the most relevant outcomes from the projects that they have been working on. First of all, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Florence Grégoire from she's Eurovelo Communication Assistant at the European Cyclist Federation, and she will present the tools for the development of cycling tourism in the Mediterranean from the Eurovelo number 8. And this is all under the project MEDCYCLETOUR project. So thank you very much, Florence. And just one comment, please, for all the audience, remind that you have the toolbox on the questions that is open, so don't hesitate to already start sharing your questions. So Giuseppe will then be able to gather them and transmit them to the panelists. Thank you very much, and the floor is yours, Florence.
Thank you. So hello, everybody. So today I'm going to present a few selected tools for the development of cycling tourism in the Mediterranean that were developed in the frame of the MEDCYCLETOUR Eurovelo 8 project. Before going into the topic, I just wanted also to mention a bit the Restart Cycle Tourism campaign. So I included that in the bottom right of my slide. So we just spoke briefly on the impacts of the COVID-19, and it could indeed really be seen in the last few weeks that the crisis, despite all the issues, gave really a boost to cycling, and so also cycling tourism. And a lot of things are done at the moment to encourage it. So I think it's really crucial at the moment to focus on this and share good practices as we are doing here. So the tools that I am going to present were developed in the frame of the MEDCYCLETOUR project. So the MEDCYCLETOUR project is based on Eurovelo 8. It is one of the 17 Eurovelo routes. You can see here on the right the network of the Eurovelo cycle route network, long distance cycle routes in Europe. And Eurovelo 8 is a 7,500 kilometers long route that is crossing 10 countries across Europe. The MEDCYCLETOUR project is a 2.5 million euro project, and it's spanning 36 months with 10 partners. So the first tool I would like to talk about, so there are a few tools linked to route developments. This is the first main area. So in the frame of the project, all the partners have realized route evaluations according to the European certification standard. It is a surveying tool developed by the ECF. And this survey have been analyzed, and yeah, the data has been analyzed to get very precise information on the sections of the route, and for instance, on the traffic volume per section, and it was also on the surface. It also analyzed the signing of the route and so on. And this data is used to create action plans. So there are both regional, national action plans, but also transnational ones. And these action plans include cost estimates for solving issues that were seen along the route. So those are very good tools for the partners to go and to convince the government to involve in cycling tourism, to involve tourism policies. Other tools that were linked to route developments are the pilots that have been implemented along the route. So those are small-scale investments, and all partners in the project have implemented them. There were signing pilots, as you can see here on the picture, also bikes in trains, bikes in buses, but then also creating networks of cycling-friendly services, using counters along the routes, and so on. Then, of course, another very important thing was the promotion of the route. A lot of promotional material has been realized in the MEDCYCLETOUR project, and I'm going to focus on the transnational level here. So we have developed a transnational overview website for the Eurovelo 8 route, and also a smartphone app. So this website is really an overview one. It gives general information on the route, dividing it in thematic sections. And you can also, tourists that are going on the website can also be redirected to national websites to get very detailed information. Then there was also the realization of a promotional brochure. It's a 100-page booklet giving a lot of details about the route as well, such as the address of tourist information centers and excursions to do. So it's good for cycling tourists. So in general, when we do promotional material, we always make sure to have a strong common visual identity among those different materials. So here is, for instance, the use of the official color of the route, and that allows to highlight the specificity of that route, really the theme of the route, and at the same time it is connecting to the whole Eurovelo network, because the sub-site is also included in the general Eurovelo website, connecting it to on the cycle routes in Europe. Then a very important part of the project is also monitoring the economic impact of the route. This was done through counters positioned in several sections of the routes, and so with the counters, we could get some more quantitative data, and then there were also questionnaires that were submitted to users of the routes in other sections. So the results are being gathered and analyzed in an impact assessment report that will be very good to talk about the economic impact of Eurovelo 8. So I included also on this slide a more general little logo, because I think it's important to insist and especially know as well on the importance of monitoring. So it's a very, very good tool to influence tourism policies in general. And impact studies have shown that cycling tourism has been growing steadily for the last 5 to 10 years. Here, the 44 billion euro are coming from a study that was commissioned by the European Parliament, and that estimated the value of cycling tourism to this number, while as an example, cruise ship industry was estimated at 38 billion. That's an understudy, of course, but it's a very important thing, and especially in the Mediterranean, because as we mentioned in the discussion earlier, cycling tourism compared to other forms of tourism also allows to lead tourism flows to areas of the beaten track, to go to more rural areas to support local economy. So on these aspects are very important to monitor in order to improve, to have funds to improve the infrastructure and so on. Then yes, the last tool I would like to mention are two tools actually linked to long-term cooperation. So we are working with the project partners to sign a long-term management agreement, which will ensure the sustainability of the project results in the long term. And we are also working on a charter for sustainable and responsible tourism in the Mediterranean area. So those two tools really allow to work in the long term on the results of the project, and to work towards positioning Eurovelo 8 among the top long-distance cycling tourism product. So with this and with the collaboration of several partners and several countries, we really want to assume responsibilities for developing the route on the transnational level, have a consistent development in the whole region. And when the long-term management agreement is mostly a long-term cooperation among the project partners, the charter also allows to look for support from external organizations, external bodies. And so, yes, those are very good tools to fulfill the goal of the project, which was in the end to use Eurovelo 8 as a tool to influence regional and national policies in favor of sustainable and responsible tourism, and to provide transnational solutions in coastal areas across the Mediterranean. Okay, so thank you. That's all for me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Florence, and thank you very much for sticking so good to the time. It's interesting to see how also through this interregional cooperation, we, on one hand, we give the tools to the regions or to the local authorities in order to develop the solutions, and then also how through this interregional cooperation we can find further on solutions, and we can even boost them along the way. So thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Marjan Dumanic, Public Institution RIRA SD for Coordination and Development of Split Dalmatia Country. He will be explaining the sustainable cruise value chain action plans that have been developed in the framework of Sirocco project. So Marjan, if you would like to connect your camera and your micro, and also when you are ready, please share your presentation.
Hello everybody, I hope you can hear me. Unfortunately, yes, you can hear me, but unfortunately I'm not able to share my web camera because my computer simply doesn't allow it. I was trying to fix it, but it was not possible.
No
okay.
problem.
Do you see my screen now?
For the moment, it's just a white slide. We see your mouse, we see a white. Okay, voila, here we have it. Yes.
Probably it's a not so good connection. Okay, thank you for inviting me here to present these outputs and results that can be transferred and replicated after the project ends. I will shortly present the project Sirocco. It was part of the Interreg Mediterranean program under this axis of sustainable tourism, and specifically we were tackling the issue of cruise tourism. We all know that cruise tourism is a very important part of tourism in whole Mediterranean, and we can say it's a very specific type of tourism which takes into consideration somehow different rules and measures to be adopted. When we talk about joint action plan, I will shortly present you how we prepare this joint action plan. We use the bottom-up approach. So we picked up 5 real destinations and we made a value chain analysis in 5 ports, 5 project partners, in the port of Civitavecchia, in the port of Valencia, in the ports of Rhodes, in port of Split and Limassol. As you can see, we covered, let's say, whole Mediterranean from west point to the east point. During this value chain analysis, we had a lot of interviews with relevant stakeholders, and we were trying to receive information from them, what is situation in their ports, or what is situation generally in the cruise sector. After that, we prepared our draft action plans, and these action plans were validated on a stakeholders meeting. We had 5 stakeholders validation meetings where stakeholder could participate in finalization of action plan. They could make comments, they could make some adjustments. We find this stakeholder validation very, very important because this cruise business is very specific. It doesn't take it's not only important about cruise line and about the ports. It's about this whole value chain. After 5 action plans, specific action plans that we prepared some general and wide cruise tourism strategies, and we call it a joint action plan that can be used for the whole Mediterranean. Action plan structure is pretty simple. We prepare a set of priorities, what is the most important and what will have the biggest impact, let's say. Each priorities have some goals to be achieved, and each goals have a plan of actions which will lead us to reach this goal. Why we prepare joint action plan? We prepared joint action plan to serve as a guidance for the all Mediterranean ports and destinations that aim at more sustainable cruise tourism sector in economic, environmental, and social terms. To federate stakeholders in the Mediterranean around a common set of high importance priorities, and to provide valid ideas for pilot project areas to be included in future European funding, because we find it that it's really, really important that future funding is not idea of a single stakeholder, for example, port, or for example, city, or for example, some NGOs or something like that. It has to be ideas that are coming from the agreement of all stakeholders. And of course, this joint action plan was prepared to promote transnational cooperation among private and public cruise tourism in the Mediterranean. The attributes of our action plan is that it reflects areas in most need of action in achieving more sustainable and responsible cruise tourism in the Mediterranean. It is very important that it adopts a value chain perspective, placing emphasis not only on this cruise line and port interface, but rather that to the cruise tourism destination interaction, because cruise sector, it's a sector that impacts destination as a whole, not only port or not only cruise lines. It affects whole destination, and it also adopts a global perspective, incorporating input not only from these 5 Scirocco destinations that I already mentioned, but also from the wider sustainable and responsible tourism environment. It is also very important to mention that this cruise business is transnational business, and each destination cannot make decisions on their own. So we took into the mind this global perspective. Priorities of our action plans. Our action plan are to understand cruise tourism, because only if we understand cruise tourism, we can create and capture the value of it. Of course, it is very important to bear in mind to improve, safeguard, enhance environmental and social sustainability of this type of cruise business. This is something that is happening to Mediterranean as a whole. It cannot be stopped, it cannot be simply ignored, but we need to improve environmental and social sustainability of it. Also, 4th priority is to build destination synergies and capabilities, because only when stakeholders are working together, we can make much greater and bigger impact. And it's very important to foresee, because this type of tourism is very often we need to invest in a long term, but some kind of return is very slow, and it's very dispersed on a lot of stakeholders. when we talk about transferability and replicability of our project result, I already mentioned that this sustainable cruise joint action plans that were formulated on this real 5 destination scenarios, and its results regarding the economic, environmental, and social impacts of cruise tourism, and interaction between cruise tourism and the cultural heritage, and the impacts related to the seasonality. The action plan of each destination was finalized through the local stakeholder validation, making use of the Scirocco Sustainable Cruise Tourism Certification System. Also, one of the, let's say, output of this sustainable cruise tourism joint action plan was this inter-regional strategy coordination recommendations, which were integrated plan of actions and policies that can bridge the different policy gaps that we found within a sector. And of course, the project contributed, as foreseen in the application form, with the MED Cruise Tourism Foresight, having identified the key factors that will influence the evolution of cruise maritime tourism, and having present plausible future scenarios for the next 20 years. We find that these are results that can really can be used in the future projects. For example, we use these results and the results of our action plans and each destinations for our future applications for future finance, because we found a direct, let's say, concrete examples of what pilot actions should be involved in each destination. That is all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Marian, for explaining this integrated joint action plan and how you have been working from this perspective of a joint value chain, and for sharing these interesting outcomes. I would now then give the floor to Mr. Fabio Tomasi, Area Science Park, who will explain the bike sharing for cruise passengers. When does it work? That has been developed under the framework of Locations project. So Fabio, this is now your slot. If you would like also to share the presentation, make sure you have it ready before sharing it. Excellent. And I think your micro is already out.
Okay.
Perfect.
So,
thank you.
Thank you very much for your invitation. So I will speak to you about the project Locations. I have been the coordinator. The project now is finished, and it involves a partnership from 5 countries: Italy, Albania, Croatia, Portugal, and Spain. As you can see, the partnership comprises of both technical partners and cities and the port authorities. It was important to have in each of the cities involved in the project either involved as main partner, technical, or as associated partner, both the municipality and the port authorities, because the project that was dealing with mobility in cruise ships destination required involvement of both of them. What is important to mention is also that we had a capitalization strategy based on training and transferring the knowledge acquired to replicating organization that replicated the plans that we have developed during the project to other destinations. In this way, the impact of the project reached 11 further cities of the Mediterranean area. The problem that we wanted to deal with is the impact that cruise ships has on local mobility. As we heard from the previous presentation, cruise ships are good for the economy. They create a value chain, but the other side have some impact on the local environment. One of these is also generated by the impact. As you can see from one of the picture, when a cruise ship hits the land, there are tens of buses waiting to transferring passengers to their visit, and this has an impact. The approach of the project was developing specific plans intended not as an independent plan, but as an annex to the local SMP of pieces was missing to the local setup. And even the methodology approach is similar to the one that is foreseen by the SMP process methodology. During the project, we identified 14 modular packages, which are possible solutions to be implemented by cities that are cruise ships destinations. Here is the list. As you can see, most of them are quite common, but they have adapted to the specific needs of the mobility linked to the cruise ships. One of the actions that we have devised was offering bike sharing for cruise passengers. And of course, this by itself is not the solution to all problems, but inside an overall plan, the idea was that this could be a solution. Consider that cruise ships could have 1,000 or even more passengers, so bike sharing could not be the answer for all of them. And we had implemented it in Ravenna. Then during the development of the project, we also get in touch with another project, Sunport, where they have developed they offered these bike sharing services to cruise passengers also in Valencia. And what we find is that in Valencia, it was a failure. Cruise passengers were not using it, whereas in Ravenna it had a good success. And also we already know from our partners in Lisbon that passengers were using the city bike sharing to do their trips. So we start investigating, and the feedback from the colleagues from Sunport in Valencia was that tours are sold by cruise companies, and so their involvement is crucial. That's a good motivation, but we realized that was enough because we had the same problem in Ravenna, but still was successful. So we keep analyzing, and we find that in Ravenna, when the cruise ships arrive in a bike-friendly environment. There are bike lanes, no tracks in the roads close to the terminal. And also the colleagues from the municipality of Ravenna investigated who was using the bike, and they found that most of the users were members of the crew, because when the crew get out of the ship, the shuttle buses were not available, and so the bike sharing was a viable solution. It is also worth to mention that around the area around the terminal, which is not in the city center, but it is in Porto Corsini, some 8 kilometers away from the city center, is close also to wetlands where there are some itineraries that could be done by bike. So getting further the idea that perhaps one further reason for the bike sharing not to be successful in Valencia was also that the area close to the terminal was not bike friendly. That was trucks accessing other terminals, and so this was another factor. During the capitalization phase, we had also the opportunity to work with the city of Livorno, which is also a destination. And the terminal, the cruise terminal, which is in Diallo, is very close to the city center, which is the Crane area. So the idea was that also you could reach by bike or walking at the city center. But then we thought about the experience of the previous cities, and indeed we find that the bike sharing was not useful because the terminal was not a safe area for bikes. And indeed, we were told that in previous years there were a group of Germans, tourists on board the cruise ships. They asked for a bike tour, also because the terminal is very close to some also bike itineraries. And in that case, they had to exit the terminal. They needed a two safety car, one in front of the group and one in the back. So the decision was that in the short terminal, bike sharing should be included, realized close to the bus stop where the cruise shuttles stops in the city center. Whereas in the long term, when the new terminal will be finalized and the new terminal will be directly close to the city center, far away from taxi, a specific service could be set. So this is to underline the importance of learning from previous projects. I'm also a partner of the urban transport project. And I think that the example that I showed you give you an idea on why the capitalization and the transferring phase is so important, because we can learn from the lessons learned of other projects, and I think that this could be extremely useful for any cities that wants to improve sustainable mobility solution. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Fabio, very much, and also for letting us know how it was born, the idea of this project, that at the end it aims to find solutions to a problem. That was the case of this of the mobility of the cruise passengers, and also sometimes how kind of bad examples of bad experiences, they help us to build up solutions from them. So thank you very much. And now I give the floor to our last but not least the speaker, Mrs. Valentina Ridolfi, Agenzia Piano Strategico from Rimini, and she will explain the handbook on sustainable mobility in the Med area that has been developed by Mobilitas project. And again, I'm sorry we are a little bit in delay, but she will be the last presentation, followed by the questions and answers, and therefore I think we will be maybe 10 minutes delay the schedule. But let's give the floor to Valentina. Thank you very much for sharing your experience.
Can you see my screen correctly?
Yes, perfectly. Yes.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone, and thank you to the organizer for inviting me to this important webinar. I'm going to illustrate to you the main outcome produced by Mobilitas project, one of the projects gathered under the Urban Network Community, Urban Transport Community Network, and the horizontal project GoSAMP. I represent here the partner Rimini Strategic Plan Agency. As you know, Rimini is one of the best known maritime tourist destinations in Italy, and our interest in joining Mobilitas partnership was that we are really aware of the importance of some key issues that bring together all tourist destinations, such as strong process of urbanization, considerable building construction, traffic congestion, and pollution. For us, sustainable mobility is one of the main topics to be dealt with in the strategic plan from its very beginning. And so for us, Mobilitas was a great opportunity to exchange our work on mobility with what other important tourist destinations of the Mediterranean area were doing on the same issue. And in particular, we were in charge of transferring activities with the Mobilitas, and we were supposed by the application form to implement a sustainable tourism mobility handbook, so a handbook dedicated to tourism mobility, sustainable tourism mobility. But we decided during a middle-term event held in Barcelona and organized by GoSAMP community in November 2018, in accordance with the joint secretariat, to extend the Mobilitas handbook to all the 7 projects of the network GoSAMP. And this decision gave birth to the handbook on sustainable mobility in the MED area. So you can see no longer the sustainable tourist mobility, but in general sustainable mobility in the MED area. The key principle of this handbook are the awareness that sustainable mobility contributes to reducing the environmental impact of transport activities, reducing the economic burden of Earth budgets, improve beauty, the quality of the city and the urban landscape, providing better ways to experience the places and facilitating social interaction and relationships. The handbook is a very agile book made of some short essays mixed with factor sheets, very easy to be read. And it is addressed to various targets, coming from decision makers to technicians, from students to citizens interested in mobility and sustainable mobility. And it is founded on 2 complementary pillars: mobility policies on the one hand and mobility actions on the other. These are the main issues of the handbook. So we deal with urban mobility problems such as congestion, road safety, noise pollution, climate change and CO2 emissions, etc. The SAMP, Sustainable Urban Mobility Plans, which aims to improve accessibility for all, safety and security, reduce pollution, GHG emissions and energy consumption, improve the efficiency and cost effectiveness of the transportation of people and goods, and enhancing to the attractiveness and quality of public spaces. Again, we deal also with the specific challenges for sustainable mobility in the MED cities, citizens engagement, so topics concerning promotion, communication and participation, and a perspective towards the future, the next future. So let's have a quick overview on the handbook contents. So it starts with chapter 1, describing the GoSAMP network, so our community, the horizontal project and its goals, the results of GoSAMP and the synergies among the 7 projects: Camp SAMP, EnerNet Moves, locations, Mobilitas, Motivate, Remedial and Support. Then chapter 2 is dedicated to sustainable mobility, and it tackles problems of urban mobility, the SAMP in general, the SAMP in Europe, and specific challenges for sustainable mobility in the MED cities. Third chapter is dedicated to citizens engagement. So it provides readers with a theoretical framework, and then deepen the topics concerning promotion and communication and participation. The fourth chapter is the core of the handbook, describing actions and tools. So mobility guidelines, sustainable mobility planning and policies, for example, an action plan for mobility in a university urban context, tourist mobility scenarios, possible approach, and other. And what is important, tools, measures, and infrastructure about mobility. So several pilot experience concerning analysis and simulation by planes, IT tools, infomobilities and apps, new urban spaces, sharing and pooling systems. To finish with perspective up to the future, describing some possible evolution of the SAMP the next future, the role of open innovation and research for sustainable mobility, and the point of view of a region, the Emilia-Romagna region, really engaged in urban European projects in general and MED projects. So finally, I have to say that it was a quite exciting experience to manage to produce an outcome refer not only to a single project, but a whole network of projects. And whenever I get the chance to do it, I take the opportunity to say thank you very much by heart to all who accepted to join us in meeting this challenge, included Fabio Tomasi, who spoke just before me, to realize a project as a result of a common effort and of a shared vision on mobility in the MED region. I've also left a short video about the handbook to the organizer if they want to share it with you. And of course, you can download the handbook in our, sorry, it was my time's up, clearly. The handbook is available on www.riminiventure.it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Valentina. I think this is an impressive piece of work that you have been doing along the project. We will be sharing without any doubt also the video that I think would also give these additional insights on what you already have shown us. But it was, I think, very well illustrated and very inspiring from the transport and the tourism point of view. So thank you very much also for that. And now I would like maybe then to give the floor to Giuseppe so he can share with us the questions that have been gathered from the audience. Okay, perfect. He's here.
Hello.
Hello,
I'm sorry, maybe I apologize something because I have been working perfectly from home over the last 4 months, and today I have problems with my Wi-Fi. Okay, so I would
maybe invite the rest of the panelists. So Valentina, you can stay if you want, but also Fabio, Marjan, and Florence, if you would like to join, so you could reply to the answers. Thank you.
Okay, there are some questions for Florence concerning the MEDCYCLETOUR presentation. Have you created common rules for the construction of the cycle path? There is also another question concerning how do you monitor the economic impacts of the route? Do you do it as an umbrella organization, or are the partners in all the countries? What are the set of indicators you use for this monitoring of the impact? And there is the same question from another person. And there is a question also for the participants that presented some measures related to cruise tourist destinations. Do you think that the current situation with the COVID-19 will generate a responsive framework to adopt these kind of measures in this type of destinations? Okay, that's all for the moment.
So yes, if I start by answering the questions, so we do not come with a set of rules for the construction of cycle paths. It's really every partner, every region or location is doing that. What we did in the form of the project was this action planning. So first the survey of the route, and then action planning to show where are the issues. And when a route inspector surveys the route, for instance, the person is really gathering data on the amount of traffic, the surface material, the type of infrastructure, all of that, and then there is a very specific framework to analyze that. So then each location has the own rules to improve the cycle path. Yeah, I hope it answers the question, but it's mostly looking at what is missing and what should be improved. Regarding the monitoring, so we are in the frame of the project. It is not we don't have as the DCF, we don't go directly on site, but we are working with 10 partners in many countries along the route. So there are partners in Spain, in France, in Italy, Croatia, Greece, Cyprus, and also Slovenia. And so the partners have been gathering monitoring data on the counters and through the surveys, and then they have done a report on this data, and us as the ECF, we put this report together to have a transnational impact assessment report. And so indicators can be different things. So the counters, they really count directly how many cyclists are using the route and can see the evolution among the time. With the questionnaires, we can also adapt the questions depending on the type of information that is needed. And then there are, it's also, as I was mentioning in the presentation, economic impact is not always that direct. It's also how much the SMEs that are along the route see a change. If more cyclists are coming there, it's also an added value for them. So that kind of thing is also included in the report. Okay. Yeah, you can let me know in case there is something I didn't answer. But,
I think perfect. Thank you, Florence. I think there was also the question for the related to the cruise. Is that correct, Giuseppe?
Yeah.
We cannot hear you.
no, we cannot hear. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now, okay. Yes, there was a question for the cruise destinations and how this situation of the COVID-19 could modify the environment or the responsiveness of the stakeholders to change the mobility practices. There is also another question for you, Fabio, that says that how many cruise passengers use the system in Ravenna, which was the price, and if the system has been implemented as a permanent in a permanent way.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I will answer first the second question, which, as I said, according to the data collected by the colleagues from the municipality of Ravenna, the main users are the crew members of the ships, because we should not forget the crew members, because there's usually for each every 3 passengers there's a crew member, and some 25% of them disembark at each port, and they also spend money for the local economy, so they should not be neglected. So in Ravenna, which was something that was not planned, the main user are the crew members. The initiative started as a pilot initiative just to test if there was an interest with some 10 electric bike. Now that was also funded by by a project, and there were further 45 bikes that have been added, and these bikes they are used permanently, but on a season basis, meaning that in summer they are located in the cruise terminal and in the seaside area, where during winter, when the cruise ships don't arrive, they are moved to the city center. So this is to the second point. The first one, well, we don't know exactly how people will react after the COVID emergency is over. I mean, now it's an emergency situation, so everything is disrupted. But I think we should focus on what will happen after. As we have heard before, it seems that apparently people will be less likely to use public transport and buses. And this means for the cruise ships that perhaps people will consider more closely bikes and walking when possible. So this could be an opportunity, but it is up to us as project and city planners to influence what the future will be. If the present situation is an opportunity or if it's a threat to sustainable mobility. So I think we should work to make the sustainable option the one that will be adopted as the other ones that will be people using private vehicles or taxis.
Joseph, can I add something?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for the question regarding situation of COVID and how it will affect this cruise tourism niche. I'm not sure how will this situation affect this cruise business in the future, but I can tell you the situation right now in Croatia. Right now, we are facing biggest drop of tourist numbers in long years, and now people from Ministry of Tourism are welcoming any kind of tourism arrivals. So we had 2 or 3 ships that started their sails from Croatia, and they are sailing only inside the Croatia. And Ministry of Tourism welcomed new guests on these ships, and I can say that ship members were very well prepared to this COVID situation. There were a lot of them had, all of them had these gloves, mask, these things for disinfections are on every place, put on every place. Chairs, there is a distance of minimum of 2 meters of each chair on the boat and so on. So it's really hard to predict how will this affect future of this business, but it will affect for sure.
Okay, thank you, Marian. There are a couple of questions more, but I think we are out of time. How can we improve the policy of taking of the best practices developed by projects, or how can sustainability mobility can improve tourist attractiveness of the destinations? Sandra, if you agree, what we could commit is to send the answers to some questions that have not been answered, jointly with the summary of the webinar, because now we are out of time.
Yes.
So I give you, so I give you the floor for the closure.
Thank you everybody. Thank you especially the panelists and also the audience for being so active. I think it has been a very enriching discussion, and I have taken some notes in order to wrap up a little bit. So basically, we are very aware, of course, of the COVID impacts and how it has hit on the both sectors that we were touching today, transport and tourism. It is indeed an opportunity. It's indeed an opportunity for some specific tourism, transport-related practices. Let's say we have been talking about cycling. We have been talking also about hiking, about the e-sharing, e-bike sharing, and for some other mode of transport or for some other tourism experiences, maybe would be also an opportunity for being kind of integrating a bit more of creativity in order to go through this period. It has been very much highlighted the fact of involvement the locals, especially the residents, the citizens, from the beginning in this participatory approach, to be part of the measures, to be part of the decision taking, to be also benefit from the infrastructures, and also to benefit from the different experiences. It has been also said about promoting the measures that they are creating. So it's true that the measures, they are developed, and at the end they need to be used. So they need to be used by the tourists, they need to be used also by the residents. It is important that we promote and that we talk about them. And for this, it is important also to create value on them, no? So to ensure that there is a value there that will lead also to an experience, that transport is not only taking us to a place, but is part of a whole experience and making the quality of life of the residents better, and at the same time the quality of the experience of the tourists also better, and maybe even more enjoyable. The cooperation, this is also something we already know, but extremely important to have this integrative or this holistic approach, and integrate and have this cooperation between public, private, residents, and also the tourists in the deployment also of the measures. We've been talking a lot about the planning, so the fact of planning following with the monitoring, it's extremely crucial along the whole way. First of all, since the beginning to develop, but also to monitor how the evolution and the implementation is going. And for this, data comes to be essential. Also, we have been talking about the fact of integrating the whole tourism value chain. And nowadays, when we hear the Commission, they are every time talking about the tourism ecosystem. And actually, this is something that we need to bear in mind, that at the end, tourism is not only a separated economic activity, nor even the transport is part of a whole ecosystem. It's actually a part of a whole ecosystem of a territory, and therefore it is important to take into consideration the whole stakeholders that have that have a say, but also that are kind of affected by the measures that are going to take part. And then the useful role of the handbook. So at the end also we'll know that we are developing a lot of research, a lot of analysis, a lot of lessons learned are being shared, and this kind of gathering and compilation and dissemination of information through these handbooks are very useful. And last but not least, we always talk about sharing good practices, but the fact of sometimes sharing less good practices or sometimes less successful experiences is also very helpful in order to create upon a solution. So these are a little bit the notes I took from all what you have been saying along this very interesting webinar. We will be including these conclusions into this email we will send to all the participants, where you will find also the presentations, the video, and the video that it was being mentioned as well from Mobilitas project, and we will then have this little report for you being available. Therefore, I think I would close here. I don't know if the organizers would like to say something. If not, then I would thank you all the participants, and we will keep then in touch. Thank you very much for joining us.
On behalf of Destinations, I would also like to extend a word of appreciation, not only to the co-organizers, but also to our partner EIP that has hosted this webinar, and to whom we owe these excellent connections, and they will be responsible for distributing the recorded parts of the webinar. Thank you all very much on behalf of Destinations and on behalf of EIP.
Thank you.